Howdy everybody, David here, and this is a virtual tour of the Fantasy Grounds virtual tabletop. Now, in this virtual tour, we are going to literally click on every single button in Fantasy Grounds. And I'm going to show you what each thing does, what each option does. Now, we're not going to go into grave detail on each one of these options. It's just going to be a general overview, and I'll talk about the program as we go along. Now, if you have not had a chance to check out the demo, if you have not actually purchased Fantasy Grounds, then hopefully this virtual tour will help you out on basically giving you the information that you would need on choosing a virtual tabletop for your D&D or tabletop game. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Now, when you fire up Fantasy Grounds using the icon, you're going to get this startup screen. And there's quite a few things that are on this screen. The first thing you're going to notice in the middle is a lot of information that the actual developers at Fantasy Grounds put in here. A lot of links, these little tabs here, these red dragon icons, those are all links. So if you want to check out the forums, ask questions on the forum, click on that. If you want to go ahead and go to the store, click on the store tab, etc. and etc. This also will have general news, and it also has the patch notes. We're currently on version 3.1.5, and it also goes back in reverse with the dates of release, so forth, and you can see the main features and changes for the previous versions of Fantasy. Alright, so the load campaign button. This is where, as a DM or GM, you're going to load in your games. These are going to be, this box is going to have all of the list of games that you have ready to go. This is going to be the extensions, where you can add or take off extensions that you want to add to that rule set. Over here are your internal and external IPs. Your external IP is the IP that you're going to give your players so they can join. You can also generate an alias with this generate alias button. Pretty cool. Comes up with some pretty cool alias names. And then last but not least, you can run a test to see if your connection's working with Fantasy Grounds. Now, next you're going to notice that there is a folder in the top right-hand corner of the interface. This is your data folder. This is where a lot of things are stored for Fantasy Grounds. So this is where your campaigns are stored, and you can modify your campaigns and add images into your campaigns. You would just go to campaigns, choose the correct game that you want to add something, go to images, bam, throw something in there. You're golden. Now, there's also the other things that you would really worry about are your extensions. If you download anything from the community forums, you would just add them in the extensions folder. If you have any kind of special rule sets like the 13th Age rule set or the Star Wars Edge of Empire rule set that was made by Trenlo, you would put those in here. And there's a lot of other rule sets that you can put in here as well. Then here's your tokens. This is how you add tokens into your bags, and then you can also make other bags depending on your host or if you want to share them with the players. So that's pretty much everything with the app data folder. Now this is how you create a new campaign here, and really general, you just put a name in here, and you can also set any kind of password you want. Here's the rule set. You would just choose a rule set and then click on any extensions you want to add to that rule set. And then over here on the right, you would give the players to join your game the external IP like I had said. Alright, now to join a game, which is really easy to join a game in Fantasy Grounds, all you're going to want to do is click Join Game, and then you would just enter the external IP that the Dungeon Master, he or she, gave you in there, and then you put your character's name in here, and then hit Connect. Then once that happens, it will save it in your connection history, and then you can join any game that you've previously joined before. So we'll go to Manage Characters now. This is a pretty cool feature that you can basically view your character, but if you want to modify your character, just get with your GM. They'll open up the game for you happily, I'm sure. And most DMs anyway, before the game, usually half an hour before, they usually allow the players to go in there and make changes to their character sheets. So, no big deal at all. Next thing we're going to take a look at is the updates, basically. And if you have any kind of patch that needs to update the game, or if there's anything that you've purchased from the Fantasy Grounds store, the next time you fire up the program, this box is going to go from brown to red. And when that happens, that means that you have an update. So all you're going to want to do is just hit the check for updates button. It'll cycle through, it'll update, it'll put your new packages or modules or rule sets that you purchased into Fantasy Grounds, and then you're good to go. You're golden, and then all you have to do is just activate them after the program's open. Now the settings button is just like it says. It's a settings button, and you would just hit yes. Bam! It pops up. It'll have your key up here, and then it has all kinds of other, where's the app folder, where's that information being pulled from, your UI scale, which is very useful. Here's your forum name. And then if you're using Steam with Fantasy Grounds, which they are compatible with one another, and Fantasy Grounds is on Steam, then you can go ahead and check Steam for DLC, and then anything that you've purchased from Fantasy Grounds on Steam will upload through the patcher here, and then you can go into test mode and dev mode. And that's pretty much everything. So as my game's loading, I'm going to go ahead and... Alright, so the next thing we're going to take a look at is the actual virtual tabletop itself, and there's a lot of features and a lot of cool things that Fantasy Grounds can do. So the first thing we're going to do is take a look at the actual tabletop itself. So the chat is down here. The chat, you can right click it. There's some options here to clear it. You can do all kinds of things. You can copy, you can paste in this, you can lock it, you can change the size of the box that you want to, you can do all kinds of different icons, and it's got a lot of good things. And also, as the players log in up here, you'll see that they'll have their little avatars up here, and then you can literally just take anything that's in the chat, you can just drag and drop it to them, and it'll send it to them as a personal message. Pretty cool. Then here's a language filter down here that if you are speaking Dwarvish, then you would just type something in there. It'll pull up all of the draconic type of language, and it'll do all the draconic characters, and then it'll literally tell you who understands it or who does not understand it. So if a player doesn't understand it, they're just going to see all of that draconic text up there and go, what is this? But it's really nice to know Draconic because it'll say understood by so-and-so. They'll be able to read it. So a lot of great functions in chat. Now, as for these buttons down here in the lower left-hand corner, this is like a temporary modifier box. And say if you are playing, we'll say that you're playing 4th edition and you have combat advantage and you have a +2. You would just put the +2 in here and then roll your attack roll, and it lasts for 1 roll, and you'll notice that the +2 is gone, and then it adds it in there. Very nicely done. Now these are features for D&D 5th edition. So if you have a character that has advantage or disadvantage, you just hit advantage, bam, it'll roll twice, take the best. Disadvantage works the same way, and then here's your +2s for cover. So you would well, not for cover, but if you have any kind of +2 or +5 bonus, you would just click those, and then it'll add there for +7 or +5 if you have +2 or a +5. So really nice modifiers. I usually just use the modifier box and the advantage and disadvantage. The system will automatically recognize. So if you're poisoned or whatnot, if you have the poison condition on you, it will automatically detect that you have disadvantage, and it'll roll disadvantage with all your attacks. So the system is really smart like that. Next thing are your dice, and these are your dice on here. You can right click on each die. You can do 20 sizes if you want to. It's crazy. You can also pick it up with the left button, and then you can just right click and then continually right click is how many you need, and then just throw them down. So if you're doing magic missile with 8d4, you would just crank out 8 of those bad boys and throw them in. Piece of cake. Percentile, it works also. You can just right click on the 10-sided and you'll see a percent symbol. Bam, it'll roll percentile for 78. And all the other dice are like that. Now when you want to change the color of your dice, you can come over to the top right hand corner, and that is your color palette. and you can just change the color to whatever you want. Different. It'll switch between all the different colors. It'll do lighter, darker, and then there's an extension that you can get from the community forums. That was a community-made extension that will literally put a box down here, and then you can put, I believe it's the 6-digit color code that you want, and it'll recognize that, and then bam, your dice will turn to that color. Really nice. So over here on the right hand side is the dice tower, and you have to turn the dice tower on in the options. If you do not do that, then the dice tower will not show up, and the options are right here on the options wheel. Now what the dice tower does is this: whenever you have, say you have a rogue that is fixing to check for traps on a door, you would tell that rogue to, take that perception check and drop that roll into the tower. And when someone does that, you'll notice that the lights come on, so someone's home and they want that dice to be thrown on the tower. So as long as the lights up, you're good. Just drop it in, and you'll see that the question mark means that it's hidden. Nobody can see it except for you, the GM. Pretty cool feature. Both dungeon masters and players can use that. Now the last thing on the base of the virtual tabletop, you're going to see these wooden buttons down here, these wood grain buttons. These are macros that you can do. And all of these work off of the function keys. So I have magic items stored because I love to give magic items out to my players, and I love to reward them with them. So I took the 5th edition Dungeon Master's Guide, took the item database, and just basically drug it down there. And you can do that with dice, you can do that with anything. So if you want to do Magic Missile at level 1, all you would just do is just put in the 3. And you can also modify that too, and click it. You can put, pluses in there. You can put anything you want in there. This is just showing you how to use the macros. Now you're not stuck with 12. There's a total of 96 possible macros that you can do, and it works from the shift button, the control button, and the alt button. So if you press shift, you'll see that it'll pull up S 1 through 12. Control will be C 1 through 12. Alt will be A 1 through 12, and then you can also mix and match all of the different commands too. So you can do Shift, Control, Alt, and it'll pull up 12, or you can just do Control and Alt, or you can just do Shift and Alt. So there's a lot of combinations that you can do between Shift, Control, and Alt that'll give you a total of 96 macros, and that's a lot. If you need 96 macros, that's too many. You're managing way too much stuff. All right, so now that we've taken a look at the basics, we're going to go ahead and start taking a look at all of this cool stuff that's on the right. And the first thing is just one of the bread and butter features of Fantasy Grounds, and it's the combat tracker. The combat tracker literally takes care of everything for you. It makes life so much easier for a player and a dungeon master. It keeps track of your current hit points. It deducts your hit points when you get hit from attacks. It recognizes conditions, and that also depends on the rule set too. Some rule sets does recognize conditions, some don't, and you have to create your own effects. So, but as for the case of 5e, if you drop any conditions on there, the combat tracker will recognize it, and it'll work for Savage Worlds, for Castles and Crusades, for Pathfinder, for 3.5, for 4th edition. So there's a lot of beautiful rule sets that the system will recognize their conditions. And like I said, it will automatically add that +2 in, or subtract that -2, or go with advantage or disadvantage. It's really nice. Now, also, in the combat tracker, it keeps track of your rounds. It'll also tell you what creatures are good, evil, and you would just change that. As a DM, just click on those. It has a menu. It recognizes short rest and long rest, so depending on your rule set you're playing, you give someone a short rest, they'll get back certain features that come back on a short rest. So if you do a long rest, then they'll get all their hit points back, all their spell slots back, everything. It's crazy with the amount of stuff that this game really does. And then your players can actually literally switch the tracker, and you can add pings and whistles and all that stuff to notify the player that it's their turn. So that's the combat tracker. There's a lot of features with the combat tracker, and we haven't even really talked about anything because this is just a general overview. Now, the next thing we're going to look at are the tables. Now, the tables is exactly what it sounds like. It is a bunch of rollable tables that you would just roll from. Now, take for instance the Dungeon Master's Guide. Now, all of these tabs are going to be from something. So here's tables from the Monster Manual, which is the Loathsome Limbs, I believe, from the zombies in the back of the Monster Manual. And here's everything at the bottom. All these tabs are where these charts are from. So here's charts from the Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide. Here's charts from Chapter 1 of the DMG, Chapter 2 of the DMG, and it just breaks it up into chapters, and we're going to get a treasure. So if you're familiar with D&D 5th edition, you're going to know that there are a lot of magic items, like 100 plus pages of magic items. Well, what they've done at Fantasy Grounds are put these onto tables for you. So if you want to roll an item from Table E, you can either do it yourself and tell the character what they get, or the player what they get, or you can right-click it and share it with the players, and then you can give them the opportunity to roll on this table to see what they get. So the player would roll, it'd be a 35, and the player would get a potion of Stormgiant strength. So, you know, I think it's pretty cool to let the players roll what they get, because it's fun for them, because they're like, oh, come on, give me something good. So rollable tables, that's what it's all about in Fantasy Grounds. Now, the next thing we're going to look at is basically the ambient lighting in Fantasy Grounds. Really cool. And if say you want to set the scene for a nighttime adventure, all you would do is just hit the moon, and you'll see the ambient light dim down to a darker shade of blue. It's really cool. It was amazing the first time when I saw this in Fantasy Grounds. If you're sitting around the campfire role-playing, you know, you can hit the campfire ambient lighting. If you're in a heavy, dense forest, it'll kind of go to shades of green. And then to go back to normal, you would just hit the sun. Now, the next thing we're going to look at is the modifiers button. That is the button that has the plus and the minus. Now, this will take care of any kind of cover, superior cover, and it'll adjust your rolls that way. If you have a critical hit, the system will automatically, for 5th edition, it will recognize critical hits. So you really wouldn't have to open up the modifier. But if you're just doing a flat-out roll and you crit, then you would go ahead and hit the crit button, and then it would recognize a double roll and whatnot. So, but I'm just using a normal dice, so it's not going to recognize it. And then you can also do half damage also. And then you can create custom modifiers just by right-clicking, hit Create Item, and then you can adjust it. How many rounds is it going to go? How long is it going to last, and whatnot. All right, so then we're going to look at one of the other bread and butter features of Fantasy Grounds, and this is the party sheet. Now, you're going to need to make sure all of your characters are drug into this, and this does several wonderful things that saves a lot of time for players and dungeon masters. The first thing that it's going to do is inventory control. Now, there are several boxes on the bottom where you can look to see how much money is in the party. The players can't see this. You can see this as the dungeon master. So you can see that my group has 1,992 gold worth of gems, and then it breaks it up into who has how much. So that's really nice. You can keep track of all of the money and the inventory. Now, in Fantasy Grounds, there are parcels, and you can have a loot parcel and drag it into the parcel box. This is everything that they would have gotten for an encounter. So for this instance, there was 150 gold, 200 silver, 600 copper, and an unidentified magic item, which is actually a potion of poison. And in Fantasy Grounds, you can also do identified and unidentified items. So if the player identifies it, you would go into their inventory, click the unidentified Ghostbusters ring, and when you click it, it'll go to green. That means that now it's a potion of poison, and they can see what it is. Now, you can distribute this. All you would have to do is just type the name of the person that this unidentified item is going to. So if it's going to Vay, just type a V and it'll put V in there. And then all you do is you just hit distribute down here. Bam, when you hit distribute, it will divide all of this loot by 4 or how many people that are in your group, and it will give this unidentified potion of poison to Vey. Very beautiful. I love it. It saves a lot of time. The other tab on the party sheet is sort of like for if your DM, well, if you, the DM, want to know how your party is marching. Say you're marching in a cave, or if you're in a castle marching down the halls, going room to room. What order? So all you would have your players do is just throw their order on here. Or if you're playing Theater of Mind, you can also use this as sort of like a battle grid if you're using Theater of Mind and there's like maybe 10 creatures involved, and then it gets a little hectic to keep track of everything Theater of Mind. Then you could whip out this this little party sheet. You can enlarge it, and voila, your life will be much easier for a larger encounter and Theater of Mind. Now the last thing is also awesome, which is it'll grant experience to your characters for you. So if you have any kind of quest parcels from the story tab, or if you have any kind of EXP encounters from NPCs from the NPC tab, then you can drag and drop those into the encounters box and the quest box, and then you can award it, and when you award it, it'll take that 2000 EXP encounter and divide it by 4, and it would literally add 500 EXP to each one of the players. It's beautiful. It saves a lot of time. It keeps track of your inventory. It keeps track of your experience, so there's no inaccuracies. It's really nice. So the party sheet, definitely another bread and butter feature of Fantasy Grounds. Now, here's the calendar. You can get player-made and community-made extensions like the Gregorian calendar and many other calendars that are used in fantasy games. And you can download those extensions, and on the starting screen where we talked about what extensions you want to attach to your game that you're going to be playing, you can attach those calendars. And then once you attach a calendar to the game, then there would be information and the calendar would actually show up for you, and then you can start entering information into the calendar. Really nice feature. Here's the color palettes again we've already talked about, and then the last little button up here is one of the last ones is the little zombie button. It looks like a little staggering zombie, doesn't it? But it's the effects button, and depending on the rule set you're using or the rule set plugin you're using, there will be different conditions. Sometimes it will have conditions made for you. Sometimes you will literally have to make your own conditions using the custom button, but that's no problem. There's plenty of syntax out there on the Fantasy Grounds wiki, depending on what rule set you're using. In this case, this is for 5th edition. So you can see here are all the different conditions. So we'll say if Tiberius here has been knocked prone and poisoned, all we have to do is just drag over prone, and that will alert us whenever it comes up to his turn again. It will say Tiberius is prone. And then if he's poisoned, the poison condition will automatically recognize that he has disadvantage on certain checks and disadvantage on attacks until poison is gone. So the condition's really smart. The combat tracker's great. So there you go. That's the effects. And the last thing we'll look at, the little buttons up here, is the options. And we're not going to go over each single option, but you can see there's a lot of things that you can do regarding combat, game, tokens, and then there's some house rules too, where you can automatically do death saving throws, or if you want the players to do it, then they can do it. So I have all that stuff turned on. It just makes everything flow so much quicker. Really nice. A lot of options in there. And now we'll look at the other buttons here on the right hand side, starting with the PC. The PC button is where all of your characters are stored for that game. It's not going to have your characters for 5e, 4e, 3.5. So if you're playing multiple games, multiple rule sets, they're not going to all be in there. These are just 5e, pertaining to this game here. And you can upload characters into Fantasy Grounds, and you can do that just by clicking the, you can import and export just by clicking the little red edit button down here. You can use the green and you can add a character sheet. So if you've created one or downloaded one, and on my website, I am going to have a complete database of characters for D&D 5th edition and several other rule sets. So if you need a level 20 paladin, you'll be able to go and download the file and upload it in. So it's going to be a huge community made character sheet database. It's going to be great. It'll be up soon, within the next couple days. So that's how you can upload them, or if you want to download them, all you would hit to do, if you want to download Shrump Ladong here and save him, all you would have to do is just hit the blue arrow button and export him out, name the file. There you go, you're golden. That's the character selection. And to open up your character sheet, all you do is you just click on that. And then the character sheet, is another beautiful bread and butter feature in Fantasy Grounds. No matter what rule set you use, the character sheets are so robust. There's so many options. Even the core RPG that doesn't have any particular rule set involved to it, it has a very robust system where you can customize it. And with the great community that Fantasy Grounds has, you can also go onto the forums and download even more extensions, especially for core RPG, and you can modify the heck out of that character sheet. It's really nice. So this is how you access your character sheet. Lots of tabs, has all the information for you. All of the attacks are all automated. You just drag the attack onto the target you want to attack. It's beautiful. It calculates, to hit versus AC. It will automatically do saving throws for you. It's just beautiful the way the character sheets are. Now here's the story tab, and the story tab, you're going to notice that there possibly could be a bunch of little tabs down here. And the story tab is basically how the content creator has created modules, and this is how you access the content from all of the modules that you have. You can create your own modules as well, which will be in a subsequent video series tutorial. Now for this instance, we'll take a look at the Rise of Tiamat. This is everything in the Rise of Tiamat, and it just goes down. Here's episode 1, the Council of Waterdeep for Rise of Tiamat. This is everything from the book, and you can just read it. It has all kinds of images, has all kinds of tables, so it allocates it to all the different sources where you would find this material. Really nice. And then you can create your own. You can create your own tabs. All you would have to do is just right-click down here, and you would just add a new group. You can change the color of the icons. You can change the icon image itself, and it's a great way to organize your game. It really is. Now, on some of these tabs, like the story tab, the NPC tab, the items tab, there's going to be little tabs in the upper left-hand corner, and this is for the quest. And like I was saying, if you have any kind of quests that have XP involved, you can just go ahead and right-click it and open it up. What does the quest have a challenge rating? You can name it, blah blah blah. You can put the XP, and then when you do that, then you can take that quest and drag it into the XP portion of the party sheet, and then distribute it, award it, bam, piece of cake. It's really easy. So that's where you're going to access the quest experience. Now after the story tab, and you can also copy paste information here too. And what I recommend is getting I would definitely recommend getting Notepad++, because there will be a lot of line breaks and stuff, especially if you're copying from PDFs. Then you're going to have a lot of spaces and gaps. So download Notepad++, take all those line breaks out, edit it before, and then just copy paste it right in there. It's beautiful. And then you can bold, italicize, you can highlight, you can do all kinds of cool stuff with it. So there you go. Now for images and maps, also down here there will be tabs depending on what modules you have activated, and this is for pretty much all of the images in Rise of Tiamat book, in the Sword Coast Adventures that you can see here that I have activated, and you can also create your own tabs and put whatever you want. So you can put scenes here, This is a Leeson, and I added that in. And you can just take the image, which I really prefer JPEGs because of the size of the file, and you can just literally drag and drop them in here, and it will put everything in order for you. And you can organize it the way you want. I mean, it's really nice. You can create tabs down here, just like you could with the story. And if you want to access your folder, just click on the folder button, and bam, there's the, it opens up what campaign it is, which is the Rise of Tiamat campaign, and then you go to the images folder, and here's everything that I've put in. There's a lot more images, of course, but you can't access them because they've already, it is encoded, and these are the ones that you can actually add in for 5e. But there are a ton of images for 5e, but I purchased the module from the Fantasy Grounds store, so that's why I can't literally see and change names of them. It's unfortunate. I kind of wish that I could edit those, but I guess it's probably for copyright reasons why you can't do that. But you can still always add images in, and like I said, you can add them in from either the folder here by clicking on the button, or you can just drag and drop them on here. Bam. Once you have your image, you just right click it, and you can just share it to your players. Also, in the last, I think it was the last update, 3.1.5, I know that they added the store button in here, and when you click on this, it'll take you to the Fantasy Grounds store. So that's really nice. It opens up a browser for you, and then you can go on the store if you need anything. Alright, so that's images and maps. Now we'll go to the NPCs. This is pretty much where all of your monsters are. So the Rise of Tiamat, these are all the monsters. Everything from the Adult Black Dragon all the way down to Z, where the Yuan-Tis are for Y. So this is all of the monsters that are in Rise of Tiamat, and for every module that you had activated, there would be another tab, and you can have your monsters in there like that. So that's good. Now, also with the story and the maps, there's also another button up here called Encounters, and the Encounters is where you would build encounters. So if you wanted to build an encounter with four abominable yetis, just put that in there, hit OK, generate. It'll be worth 20,000. You just hit this refresh CR. It's a challenge rating, 18 encounter, 20,000 experience, and then all you would do is just, whenever you're going to reward the XP, just take this, bam, it'll take that 20,000 XP, and when you hit award, it'll divide it, and I'll just go ahead and do that. You can see that it awarded it, and it put 20,000 XP divided by 4, 5,000 apiece. Pretty awesome, isn't it? So you can keep track of your encounters there. It's awesome. Alright, so the next thing we'll take a look at items. Another great thing. Now you can look at all of the different items that are in the modules that you have activated, and here's Rise of Tiamat, Arrow of Dragon Sling, Belt of Giant Strength, Dagger +1. These are all the items. They're all drag and drop. You can drag them onto the inventory, the character sheet, no problem. But just like the experience for the NPCs and story for quest, you can also make parcels. And this is one example parcel here. This is when you're playing the Rise of Tiamat, and we'll say that you go into the treasure vault. This is everything that's in the treasure vault over here. And there's 350 gold, a ring of poison resistance, scroll of protection, silver and 4 goblets. There's a tome. Last year there's 2 tomes. So that's a payday. You would just basically just drag and drop this onto the inventory. Alright. So when you drag and drop that on there, see, it'll put all the unidentified items. Because I have that option turned on, it'll add the money over here, and then each identified item, you can just see what it is. So there's the ring of poison resistance. So if you want the players to already have it identified, all you have to do is open up each item, or just turn the feature off, and that's how you identify the items. It's really nice. So that's the items tab. And you can, like I said, you can create as many tabs as you want. You can change the colors of the tabs. You can change the symbols of the tabs. You can do anything. Here's the notes, and these are notes that my players do, they create these. You can make them public to where anybody can see them. You can, basically just add whatever you want. It's pretty nice at what you can do. You can, the owner, if the owner just wants it for him, it'll be just for that person. But if the owner makes it public, like what Wormfood had did, he had checked the public button, then everybody can read that. Now, when you check the public button here, you'll see that the Council of Terror will just go right to Wormfood. But we'll turn that back on. So that's basically the notes journal. And a couple more things. There's the library here. This is how you are able to activate. I keep talking about all of these activations of modules. So this is the 5e stuff that I have activated for my Rise of Tiamat game. Obviously, I have Rise of Tiamat, Sword Coast Adventure Guide, the Player's Guide for the Sword Coast Adventures, and then the DMG Elemental Evil Player's Companion, so in case they wanted to play or choose any of the special spells from there, they could have those. The Monster Manual and the Player's Handbook. So and then you can also click on the store. It'll take you to the Fantasy Grounds store again. Or if you want to activate a module, you would just hit the module button and activate whatever you want just by opening up the book or giving players access or actually blocking access to the players. So that's how you basically activate. And like I said, there will be more tutorials that go into much more depth, but this is just an overview of all of the features of Fantasy Grounds. And the last one here is the tokens. Now, the tokens are really are a great way to show what your players look like, what the monsters look like, and Fantasy Grounds has a ton of different tokens. You can also go on Google Images. There's a token maker, I think it's an RPG tool. It's called Token Maker. You can make your own tokens. You can do whatever you want. I made these tokens here. So I also have a tutorial on how to make tokens. Really easy. You don't have to spend any money at all. You just need images, and it's just super easy, super quick. All right, so for tokens, it works the same way as the other buttons here, the story, the maps, the items. You would just click on these buttons down here. You can go to the store. You can, go to the modules. There's all kinds of free tokens that Fantasy Grounds give you. They give you these animal pogs, the animal tokens. It gives you the character pogs, the character tokens. So if you like them in a pog format or a token format, bingo, you have access to all kinds of free tokens. You have access to letter tokens, and then here's more monster pogs and monster tokens. I mean, they give you a bunch. And then everything else are pretty much tokens that I've purchased from the Fantasy Grounds store. And then with the Dungeon Master's Guide, all of the different 5e modules, a lot of the other modules too, Pathfinder 3.5, they all have tokens attached. So make sure you attach those so you'll have a greater number of tokens. I know some people probably forget about that, but you can attach those and you'll have more tokens to use. Really nice. And I think there's like 300 or so for the Monster Manual. Literally, there's a token for every single monster from the 5e Monster Manual. So you can also access your tokens two different ways. There's two different types of tokens. There's GM tokens and then there's shared tokens. The GM tokens are the tokens that only you can see. And then the players, they can open up, and if there's any tokens that are in the shared folder, then the players are able to access tokens and choose them, or that goes for portraits as well. And the portraits are pretty much these on your character sheet. Tokens will usually go on the right, but I just use the portrait for both, which you can do that. So all you would do is if you want to do your, add stuff, say you want to add some monsters to your repertoire, all you would do is you would just hit the GM button down there, and then if you want to make a folder, just right click, make a folder, name it whatever you want, and voila, boom. And then just close the bag, open it up, your token will be there, and that's it. So guys, wow. Quite a long tutorial. I promise none of the other videos will be this long. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me for these some 40 minutes or so. But I hope this virtual tour or overview of what all the options are in Fantasy Grounds. I hope it helps you. And if you haven't, like I said, if you haven't had a chance to check out the demo, check it out. If you haven't purchased Fantasy Grounds, I hope this demo can actually help you out on what you envision your game to be like. And if you like these features, maybe you'll check it out. But definitely check out the demo version and press all these buttons and check everything else out for yourself. So thank you guys for watching again. Please feel free to leave a comment down below. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. And until next time, great gaming, guys.